fighting connoisseurs. This is KidNativeBloodyElbow.com, joined once again by Zane Simon for the UFC on Fox 20, aka UFC on Fox. Holm versus Shevchenko, or as will be known in history, Shevchenko versus Holm, because Valentina Shevchenko pulled off the big upset, won the decision, unanimous decision, 49-46 across the boards over Holly Holm. 5 rounds. First round, it looked like Holm was going to knock her the F out. And then from then on, it was a slow, grinding war of attrition that Holm could not win.
Yeah, I'm frankly surprised. Shevchenko, the problem for her has tended to be in the UFC that she doesn't put out enough volume to just cleanly outpoint someone round to round unless she's absolutely dominating the striking. And this fight, she really turned it up. She hung with Holm strike for strike, and then over their careers, she's been much, much more accurate than Holm, and that makes a huge difference. I mean, if you're matching the striking output and you're landing twice as much, then it's not hard to win. And Holm's never been despite her head kick finishes regionally, she's never been a great, consistent electric finisher against high-level opposition. So the chances of her just putting Shevchenko away always seemed remote.
Yeah, and I picked Shevchenko, which is a rarity where my pick was the right one. So take it, smarty pants. But
why though? Why did you pick?
My feeling was that Shevchenko neutralized Holm's biggest asset to some extent in striking. That Holm really feasts upon people where she has a huge advantage in striking. That Holm isn't. She's a counter striker. She's got some pop, as we saw in the first round against Shevchenko, but she's not, to me, a stone killer. She's somebody who's been blessed with some gifts of power and precision striking, but I don't think she really has the killer instinct. And I saw something in her in the tape fight where I didn't see great depth of will there, and I felt like Shevchenko could stymie her and would win everywhere else, and that's what she did.
That was a good read. What can I say? Like that's an excellent read.
Blind pigs find the acorn every once in a while, kid. Every once in a while, the old man is right. It's yeah. I mean, Shevchenko, when she dominated her in the clinch, when they tried to go to other positions, she outmuscled Holm.
I thought Holm had the edge there early, but it just seemed like Holm started to fade a little bit, and once she faded a little bit, and that little, like, the strength edge was a little less, then Shevchenko's greater clinch technique really took over.
Yes, absolutely, and it was very similar with striking. It was striking. I was about to eat crow when Holm started lighting her up in the first round, because those were clean, powerful strikes that way more powerful than anything Valentina landed in the whole fight. But Shevchenko was landing more shots, and she adjusted. They were talking up that lead hook she was throwing so much, but they didn't really mention it when she started switching to a straight with the other hand and lighting Holm up. And Holm didn't have another trick in her book.
Yeah. The big thing I saw was that Holm really, she's only comfortable leading with a couple of strikes when she's leading, because she will put out a lot of leading offense, a lot of jabs, a lot of oblique kicks, but it's really that's where she's comfortable, is jab leads, oblique kick leads. If she has to be creative and dynamic to lead consistently, then it's just she doesn't have that ability to find other ways to start an exchange and hurt somebody starting an exchange. So by the time they got late in the fight, Shevchenko was just like, okay, I just have to step out of the range of this lead jab or this lead oblique kick, and then I can come right back and counter you hard with something. And Holm's tells were too big, and every now and then Holm would sit down on a power strike, but it was, I'll sit down on one thing, throw it as hard as I can, and if I miss that, I'm going to step right back out and reset and start everything over again. And she never could land that big power shot that she was swinging wild with.
No, never did. And another factor that I haven't mentioned in picking Holm, and this is entirely superstitious nonsense, but just after watching Miesha Tate crumble against Amanda Nunes at UFC 200, I just knew Holm was going to lose just because this division has a curse on it. She might not be training, but I think she's working her voodoo and is just salting the earth of this division from the astral plane because it has just gone to shit in record time. I mean, this division, you had Ronda Rousey on top, becoming a sport transcending superstar. 3 fights into that, maybe 4 fights into that run as a superstar, Holm pops the bubble. Holm gets a certain amount of media interest, loses to Tate, who gets a lesser amount of it. Now Nunez gets no interest, and now Holm's out. This is 2 losses in a row. Rousey's going to be coming back if Holm was the obstacle. But now she's got to be looking at, well, if Holm can't beat these gals, can I? She's going to have beaten Fedor syndrome, maybe.
Maybe. The thing to me is just it's the same thing we tend to see in almost every division that has had a dominant champion. Once that dominant champion loses, you realize that there are like now 5 people who were right below them who are indistinguishable from one another in terms of ability to hold on to a belt.
Yeah, and the stylistic factors really come in. So you have a lot of A can beat B and B can beat C and stuff going on. And yeah, from a business perspective, I mean, Ronda will be big when she comes back, but I can't even think who would be the logical fight for Rousey to fight at this point.
She's going to fight the title winner. She's going to fight whoever's champ.
Nunez. So it's basically an anonymous opponent for Rousey.
Which is fine. I mean, she can sell against anonymous. She will always be the A side, even as a champ coming off a loss.
Yep.
But it definitely once Ronda if Ronda wins, then it'll be interesting to see what comes next. And if she loses, then we're in a whole world of a whole new country.
Yes.
Ronda Rousey comes back and loses to Amanda Nunes.
Yeah, then the dream is over for women's bantamweight for a while, I would think. But
I would hope that would kick them to start women's flyweight and say, you know what, we don't really need to care about this 135 division. We can make a new 125 division and see what shakes out there because it's going to have a lot more talent coming up from the bottom.
Yeah, and I think I'm bullish on women's MMA long term. I think that there's not a lot of competition for the best female athletes. I think that, I mean, what other, unless you're Serena or Venus Williams, what other gig are you going to make more money than Ronda Rousey's made in the last few years as a female athlete?
Yeah, there's basically track and tennis and some golf, and that's about it.
And WNBA will pay you, but not a lot.
not like $7 million a fight pay you.
No, not even close. So, and I also think, especially with the William Morris acquisition, there's just going to be, when you have an attractive, charismatic female fighter, that's going to be a lot more interesting to people than even the most charismatic man. So, long term, I'm bullish, but it could be a while before we have another star. But let's talk about the rest of the card. Edson Barboza beat Gilbert Melendez in the co-main event. Unanimous decision, 30-27 on 2 cards, 29-28 on the third. Melendez just looked like yesterday's news. I mean, he cracked Barboza a couple times really hard in the second round, but had no answer for the leg kicks. And Barboza's just upped his game and was just shucking off the wrestling attempts.
Yeah, I loved and hated this fight at the same time, and it makes me feel really weird. Like, I feel especially soured on the fact that they both started celebrating before the final round, or before the end of the final bell, when Barboza got hurt in the first and second round and barely landed more in the first round than Melendez. And so it's just like, how can you feel like you've dominated this fight, even if he chewed him up late?
Yeah.
And then Melendez, too, to back off. And it's like, you've got to know that you're close to losing. What are you guys doing? It felt like one of those fights where both guys were just so concerned about potentially losing this fight. Barboza, because he did not want to get, because he's on the cusp of a title shot. And Melendez, because he's on the cusp of being completely irrelevant.
Yeah.
And they were absolutely unwilling to open up in a fight that, to me, felt a lot closer than I think a lot of people seem to score it. Like, I think Melendez I'm happy with the score. I think Melendez lost it, and I think Barboza chewed him up, but it doesn't make
Melendez scored some points.
Melendez scored some points. It doesn't make me turn around and see Barboza as a title challenger and say, he could easily take the belt. It says if
Not in this
somebody doesn't
division.
know how to block leg kicks, he could maybe take another fight like that. But
Yeah. I mean, I think there are plenty of divisions where Edson Barboza would be an immediate title threat, but I think at lightweight, with Khabib and Tony Ferguson out there and Eddie Alvarez, the champion, obviously, and even Rafael Dos Anjos, who just got beat by Alvarez, man, things are crowded up there.
they are. I will say, I do think Barboza would match up pretty well with Eddie Alvarez if he got that chance. Like, I don't know that I don't
Alvarez
have a.
is so similar to Gilbert.
Yeah.
He's a little quicker and a little meaner on the inside. But I think the overall power is less than.
And the lack of leg kick checking is a notable flaw for Alvarez in the past.
Yes, he's got some of the same flaws in his game as Melendez. I mean, I've been watching Gilbert Melendez for a long time, and he's, I think, one of the best lightweights of his generation. It's unfortunate for his career that his absolute peaks were when he was outside the UFC or Pride, when those were the dominant lightweight divisions through the course of his career. But showered himself with accolades, beat plenty of great fighters, just came up short, came to the UFC late in his career, frankly, and now he's just lost in time. I mean, I don't see sort of the plodding wrestle boxer who is a top control guy fundamentally. I mean, Melendez's real game was the takedown and ground and pound. And it just feels like the game has passed him by, and Barboza has really improved his game. I mean, because Melendez took away that outside kick. I mean, the old let's hang back and throw wheel kicks Edson Barboza would not have won this fight.
Yeah.
But he was able to fight in the clinch and up close, not so much the clinch, but in close range. And pretty impressive. But yeah, like I said, I feel like there's a ceiling at lightweight for Barboza that he's pretty much at. I mean, I feel like he can jump Cerrone and Nate Diaz, because they're basically not in the division at the moment. They're busy with other things. Yeah. So, that jumps him from 6 to 4. But after that, other than Alvarez, and I'd be curious to see him against Rafael Dos Anjos too. But I think Ferguson and Khabib both beat him pretty handily. Could be wrong, of course.
That is my worry. Somebody brought up that it could be this kid. Like Barboza might be like a fatal flaw for Khabib if it's that really practiced outside striker versus grappler who's gotten by without good striking because he's a great athlete, and you get like the Holm Rousey matchup of Khabib just rushing at Barboza, winging wild shots that have worked against everyone else, and Barboza circling out and picking him off. But I haven't seen Barboza with enough of a practiced outside like jab game to actually make that work. Like it would have to be leg kicks that he would be landing to pick Khabib off.
Yeah, and I don't think that would work against Khabib like it did against Melendez. But then in the second fight on the main card tonight on Fox, heavyweight Francis Ngannou smoked Bojan Milovic, but first round TKO, minute 44. But it wasn't. I mean, they threw this rookie in there with no UFC experience from extremely minor regional fighting experience. They were hoping for a showcase knockout here, and they didn't quite get it. I mean, Ngannou's, you can't flaw his performance, but it's not highlight reel stuff.
No, it's not quite the big look at our future, amazing future star kind of thing. It's the sort of thing where if you're a hardcore fan hoping to see Ngannou or Gao, I don't know. I thought I knew it Ngannou, but then they're calling him Ngannou or something on the broadcast. Yeah, they
call him Ngannou on the show. So
yeah,
I can't pronounce anything. So
if you're like me and you're just hoping to see a good heavyweight prospect stay on track and not lose a stupid fight that he has no business losing, then I'm very happy about this. But if you're expecting a casual fan who's never seen Ngannou actually fight before to like be wowed, this wouldn't have done it.
No, not at all. And frankly, Joe Rogan kind of hinted at this. It's pretty much time for him to step up a bit and fight somebody a little tougher.
I mean, tougher than that, yes, but this was a big step back from his fight against Blades. I'd like to just see him face somebody like Omalanchik or one of those other sort of generic nameless dudes that are fighting at the bottom of heavyweight division right now. That
Yeah.
somebody coming off a win, Omalanchuk got a win. Jared Cannonier got a win. I think Shamil Abdurakhimov got a win last time out. One of those guys that's like tougher than Mahajlovic, who's just the very, very low end. We brought in somebody to get crushed.
Yeah,
But
the two
I don't
guys in
want
the
to.
opener on Fight Pass both could have smoked that cat. I mean,
Yeah, I don't want to see Ngannou rushed into like have him fight Roy Nelson because
no.
we saw Derek Lewis almost lose to Roy Nelson, and Lewis is a lot further along than Ngannou.
Yeah, for sure. I don't think he's ready for top 15, but I do think he's ready for somebody with the octagon win under their belt.
Yeah.
Then in the main card opener, you had women's strawweight. Felice Herrig returned from a long layoff, submitted Kaylin Curran, minute 59, rear naked choke. Dominant performance from Herrig. What can you say?
Yeah, I was really impressed. I thought Herrig would be able to kind of take a points decision just because Herrig's always been tough and scrappy, and she gets a lot of flack because I think people just don't like her and her personality, and she's not a good wrestler, which none of that division, most of women's MMA isn't. But she's, you look at the people she's lost to, and it's Barb Honchak, Invicta champ, Carla Esparza, former UFC champ, Tisha Torres, and Paige Van Zandt, who are both, legit top prospects. And Curran was a favorite even coming in. It just kind of shocked me. Herrig's been around a long time, and she's beat a lot of people, and she's always good and consistent. So this just seemed like with Curran, it's another young, good athlete that they're just throwing in against a bunch of seasoned vets in that division and letting them sink before they ever have a chance to get anything started.
Yeah, they're very profligate with talent. Then the headliner of the Fox prelims, you had bantamweight Eddie Wineland knock out Frankie Saenz, third round, minute 54. Saenz was doing pretty well on the scorecards, I would have to think, up to that point. Wineland wasn't connecting a whole lot, but then when he did, that was that.
Yeah, Saenz it seemed like he could not connect. Usually his wrestling and boxing have been pretty well connected in the past.
Yeah, he wasn't finishing well at all.
Yeah, a lot of that may have been that he's always in the past been able to track guys down in the clinch up with them, and then kind of grind on them and hit nice takedowns from there. And Wineland he's fast on the outside. He moves his feet a lot. He darts in and out a lot. And it really forced Saenz into a lot of poorly set up takedowns. And while Saenz was outlanding Wineland for a lot of that fight, he also got dropped a couple of times leading up to the knockout. So
yeah, Wineland's power was such a huge factor. And his arms, he's just got freakishly long arms that are perfect for uppercuts. And I don't know, Wineland I've watched for a long time, always enjoy his work. He's frustrating because I feel like he plateaued at a certain level that was not quite at elite, but he's got knockout power that is at the elite level, and that's just that'll do it, and you just can't clinch up with the guy. He will hit you with an uppercut. He'll shove you off with those arms. He's just not a good guy to tie up with. And Saenz couldn't get a grip on it and paid the price. Then you had featherweight Darren Elkins come back and beat Godofredo Pepe, unanimous decision, 29-27 on two cards, 30-26 on another one. I don't quite know what's going on with the 30-26 because I had a 29-27 as well. Pepe had a moment there in the first round where he reversed and bloodied up Elkins, but otherwise it was pretty much all Elkins.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought Pepe had the better dynamic offensive moment in the first and second round, where like he was hitting these really big, powerful strikes, going for aggressive subs, doing well, but he lost a lot of positions. I don't have a fault with the 29-27 score. That's how I scored it, but I was a little surprised to see Pepe not getting more credit for kind of landing a lot of the better shots early.
Well, that's why I think 30-26 is just crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, that's winning all three rounds with a 10-8 round. I didn't see a 10-8
Well, he got a
round.
point taken away, so that was the 10-8.
Yeah, and that was for an illegal knee, a flagrantly illegal knee. So, so that makes sense. In fact, but see, I still 29-27.
I thought Pepe clearly had a lot of good aggressive, close to finishing offense in round one, and I can't really see scoring for Elkins just over some positional control and some consistent like peppering output.
Yeah, that was it's the sort of judging that was the norm until very recently.
Yeah.
We're starting to see damage and being scored more than control recently, but they got a Stone Age judge there, I guess. But anyway, impressive performance from Elkins to come back because Pepe was, hurting him early. But mostly, I mean, Rogan nailed it. Pepe just kept leaping into guard and then not having anything. What are you doing? This is the worst possible position to be in. This is where Elkins wants to be, and you keep insisting on fighting here.
I think I saw it was a coach, Stephen Wright, I want to say, who pointed this out on Twitter during the fight, is that Pepe fights like somebody who has no idea how to fight elite competition because he's never had to face like really elite guys. So he fights everyone like they are a low-level dude he can just style on. And he's never put together a game that's like, oh, I actually can't pull guard on somebody over and over again.
Yeah.
And I can't just fly in with a big dynamic strike and not get put on my ass and ground down for 3 minutes. And he, the plus side of him being that fearless and slightly clueless is that we've seen him hit flying triangles and triangle arm bars and flying knees and just all sorts of random crap that he pulls out and has been able to put up some great finishes. But the downside is that when he starts to get to the gatekeepers, to the elite, he's just going to fall short.
Yeah, and I'm not seeing any signs of development. He
looked like he was clicking faster, like everything was coming together faster and more dynamically for him than ever. Like he really put it on Elkins early, and Elkins is a tough dude, but it's just then that lack of process, that lack of having a consistent skill set that wins you rounds.
Yeah, and bad fight IQ.
Yeah,
just poor decision making in the heat of the moment. I'm not seeing that fit. That's not improving, and I think low fight IQ will hold you back like nothing else. As Tim Sylvia famously said, half of this game is 90% mental. He's exactly right. So then you add welterweight Kamaru Usman beating Alexander Yakovlev unanimous decision, 30-25 on all three cards. Explain.
I mean, I was hoping to see something more from Usman because my whole thing, I've been beating the drum of like, Usman is an elite prospect. He's going to be a top 15 fighter. He's going to be a great fighter in this division. Why aren't people excited about him? And this is kind of why. Like, the flip side of this is that Yakovlev is a very good technical wrestler, and Yakovlev was working incredibly hard to make sure that Usman could not advance or keep positions. And so Usman ended up in this very stifling, I have to keep positions, lockdown game. But he had Mount for a lot of the latter half of that fight and just could not find the consistent power shots to put him away.
Yeah.
I still think that Usman's going to keep developing. He's going to keep, with his power and his athleticism and his depth of singular wrestling skill, it's just all about, will that striking or will that grappling really click to the point that he's just suddenly a finisher? But until it does, it's not maybe going to be thrilling to watch.
Yeah, it wasn't much fun. So, but another win for the Ultimate Fighter winner. Then you had lightweight Miguel Prazeres beating JC Cottrell, unanimous decision, 30-26 on one card, 30-27 on two others. Prazeres just mugged him. I mean, he was just
he's bigger, more power. He's more powerful. Cottrell was coming in on short notice, and frankly, Cottrell's striking game, when he's way better striker than others on the regional scene, he'll throw in some interesting flying stuff. But when he's about equal, he just is kind of wooden and stiff and tends to get hit up a lot. And Prazeres never faded quite badly enough for Cottrell to actually get any offense going at all.
Yeah, no, and it was not a scintillating fight. Then we had three fights on the Fight Pass card. Alex Oliveira beat James Muntasri in the headliner, unanimous decision, 30-26 on two cards, 30-25 on another. Just utterly took Muntasri out of his game. I mean, this is a classic. You get two strikers, Muay Thai versus Taekwondo. Oh, that sounds fun. And what you get is a clinch fight, ground and pound mugging because he did not want to engage Muntasri at range, which was a perfectly rational decision. It was a perfectly violent fight. It was entertaining. It just wasn't. If you wanted to see, oh, well, how does Taekwondo shake out against Muay Thai? Well, we still don't know.
Part of that's a little bit on Joe Rogan and Mike Goldberg for selling it as a Muay Thai versus Taekwondo fight, because Oliveira is a pro bull rider who found MMA late and is learning all the skills from the bottom up. His striking is Muay Thai based, but it's not like he's like some region. He's not Edson Barboza. He's not a regional Muay Thai champ stepping into MMA. He's just got some Muay Thai that he does, and he also wrestles and he also grapples. And we've seen him enough at this point to know that if he doesn't feel like he's winning striking exchanges, he will absolutely just take guys down and beat him up on the ground,
or just beat him up against the fence. I mean, there was plenty of clinch mugging going on, and it was a good performance from Oliveira and a completely rational decision, but it was what I expected. I expected Oliveira to take it, and other than jumping up against Donald Cerrone, we haven't seen him really against elite competition or even really notably good competition at any point yet. So I'm looking forward to him stepping up a little bit.
Yeah, Oliveira is ready to step up. He's a big physical force. He's got that wiry strength that probably comes from doing things like bull riding for years. And he's well-rounded. He's super aggressive, and he's willing to take the fight anywhere and be aggressive. It's probably going to be a roadblock to him, I think, when he starts to reach the upper levels where guys are well-rounded and then also really deep technically in one area. But until then, he's going to, he'll beat some decent fighters just by being big and strong and tough and willing to go wherever he has to win.
Yeah, it sort of reminds me of a smaller Ovince St. Preux and that well-rounded athlete coming late to MMA and tough as shit. If you've ever dealt with real-life cowboys, basically you don't fuck with them. I mean, growing up in West Texas, like if I knew somebody lived on a ranch or worked on a ranch, you're on your own, cowboy. I'm not fucking with you because you're going to be tough as hell because you're dealing with giant animals all the time and close contact. And so, yeah, he's just got the grit and toughness. And Muntasri's one of these guys I think should follow the sort of Cruikshank model of just put him in fun fights with other guys who are going to strike with him and see what he can do. But I don't think he's going to transcend that like Stephen Wonderboy Thompson has, where he's going to up his game and develop the takedown defense and the clinch avoidance to keep the fight at distance and at his range. So anyway, then you had featherweight Jason Knight beating Jim Ehlers, split decision. One of the better fights of the night, I thought. That was a pretty good back and forth scrap. Knight got bloodied up, but just kept coming. And Ehlers was backing away, but landing counter shots. So it was a really quite fun fight. Who did you have it scored for?
Oh, I thought it was pretty clearly for Knight. I gave it to him clean. I thought it was, I thought Ehlers won a late. I thought he took the last round only because he stunned Knight with a really hard shot and hurt him. But otherwise, I thought Knight really clearly took the first two rounds. I was surprised somebody gave Ehlers another round.
Well, I thought Ehlers hurt him a little bit more in the first round in some of the exchanges.
Yeah.
More so than in the second. And so I could see giving Ehlers the first round. I wasn't paying close attention to the score at the time. And since Ehlers was grinding him down towards the end, I was leaning towards Ehlers getting the decision, but I hadn't. That's not like
there is a sense that Knight was he was acting like he was dominating the fight while barely edging out rounds. Like it's weird because you have this thing where it's like the far less powerful athlete acting like he just absolutely is dominating and cannot be hurt while getting hit hard a lot
and bleeding
a lot. And yet at the same time, he was absolutely outworking Ehlers. So, he sold the show, and I'm not sad to see him win it. I think that Ehlers, as much as I like him, and I think that he at one point was a good prospect, it just seems like he spent too much time jumping around small camps, from small camp to small camp, and he never really built that fundamental MMA game. He's still about as wooden a striker as he was like 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And while he's got some real power, it just, when you can't land consistently enough to actually hurt, actually knock people out, that power means a lot less.
Yeah,
And
and you don't have the footwork to get yourself in the position to land those punches, to get the angles
yeah,
to land those punches. Yeah, it's just you're rolling the dice at the UFC level. You just can't do that. And then in the opener, heavyweight Luis Enrique beat Dmitry Smolyakov, submission rear naked choke, second round, 3 minutes 58 seconds. These guys, if somebody's going to fail a drug test, it's going to be one of these two guys, and they were terrible. This was that fight just. Man, yeah, they were both better than the guy that fought Nagao, but
yeah.
otherwise,
Well,
really had minimal business being in the octagon.
I mean, they're part of the UFC's new attempt to rebuild the heavyweight division from the ground up, which is to go out and find every like 6'4", 250-pound dude on a win streak that they can.
Yeah, it's pretty
And
much the beginning of the longest yard, except not in prison. I mean, they're just going or stopping at truck stops. I mean, they're just looking for big drifters that, you know,
and, and I still have like I would say that Enrique has showed a little development from fight to fight.
He's
like,
got some potential. I'm being a little hard on the kid. He's young, and he's big and strong. It was more Smolyakov that I was really disimpressed with.
Smolyak. I mean, it's a UFC debut from crushing cans on the regionals, so I'm not surprised to see him just totally be not in good enough shape for it and struggle mightily. But as he's already 33, it's definitely okay, well, now that you've had this happen to you, you need to show marked improvement in your fitness in the next two fights, or you're going to be in deep trouble. Because he did Henrique got deep on some shots early in that fight, and Smolyakov was able to stay up and stay on his feet and shuck off takedown attempts.
No, he didn't look terrible. He just looked like not in especially good condition, and could use to lose quite a bit of weight.
Yeah, he looked good early, and then he faded incredibly hard as the fight went on.
Yes, this was not in condition, and his fights have never lasted this long, and so this should be a real rude awakening for him. I'm sure Henrique was physically much more powerful than anybody he's locked up with in the past and his MMA experience, and we'll see. But back to the main event, Shevchenko beats Holm. The women's bantamweight division just piles of money were just lit up in smoke tonight,
Yeah, well, it's also a question of I remember after Holm lost to Miesha Tate, my immediate thought was, I wonder just how many fights Holly Holm would have to win to actually get another crack at Ronda Rousey. Because there is a real sense to me, too, that the UFC had no interest after that of continuing Holly Holm as a top contender.
Business. No. They had bitter negotiations with her coming in. I think they do have a tendency to be a bit of homers, and that they have certain fighters they really, really like, and if you beat one of those fighters, you're never quite in. I think one of the factors that's pretty underrated for the alienation between Dana White and Georges St. Pierre was beating Matt Hughes for the title, and the whole not impressed with your performance thing. There's something there, and they didn't.
Well, I mean, Hughes works for the UFC now, so you can see how much Hughes was Dana's boy, and
he's right.
Even on the way out, Georges St. Pierre, one of your biggest stars, longest running champions, most gentlemanly fighters and beloved fighters, and the first thing that Dana White says is you owe it to us to not retire, and it's just there had to have been a lot of bad blood for that kind of thing to be thrown out against somebody like GSP.
Yeah, and I don't think it was just beating Hughes, but because GSP's managers is a whole other shit show.
I think that's where it really is that with Holm and GSP and fighters like that, the UFC does not like Lenny Fresquez, Holly Holm's manager, at all. They have, Dana White publicly went out and blasted him, in public, was this dude who manages Holly Holm is a amateur jerk, and we hate this guy and don't want to work with him. And that's the kind of thing where it makes you think, okay, are they ever going to let Holly Holm fight Ronda Rousey again if she doesn't have a belt around her waist?
At this point, she has to get infinite wins to get at Rousey again. I still think honestly, I think there's much more public interest in a rematch.
Oh yeah, there's a ton of interest in the fight. It would have been
Yeah.
a big it would have been a big sellable fight, but it's
Yeah.
just, the UFC
No
doesn't
matter
want
how
to
many
cut
losses.
Holly that check.
Yeah, because the audience has not tuned in. The Rousey audience has not tuned in to follow Holly Holm, going forward after Ronda left, and yeah. So here we are, and Chris Cyborg somewhere out there floating in space, and I don't see her getting in this mix at all either. And we don't even
Well,
know if
you
Rousey's
saw
going to.
Holly right before the fight being like, "Sure, I'd fight Chris Cyborg like I said I would when I first came into the UFC, but it'd have to be at 135." And it's
Yeah,
just like, oh, okay, that's gone down the tubes.
yeah, that's
This
pretty
is
much over.
we're getting whatever woman at 135 is actually crazy and desperate enough to step up to 145, and none of the big stars will
Yeah,
ever take that fight.
yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want to fight Chris Cyborg either. So, anyway, that's our show. We'll be back next week for UFC 201. Lawler and Woodley fighting for the welterweight title. So, remember to follow us on Twitter at KidNate, at TheZaneSimon. Read us at bloodyelbow.com. Subscribe to MMANation.com on YouTube. Subscribe to MMA Nation on iTunes. Get the audio without the ugly. Eugene will be back tomorrow with Knuckle Up. We'll have If I Did It. We'll have Heavy Hands. We'll have the MMA Care Don't Care preview for UFC 201 and the vivisections. So we'll be back for all that. So adios, MMA aficionados. We'll see you next time. Thanks a bunch, Zane.